My dear old things, I hope you like my gentleman's smoking cap. I think it's marvellous. And if you would like one, all you've got to do is get in touch with Peter Christian. Peter Christian, who sells so much, look at these wonderful clothes. Write to them, get in touch with them, and tell them what you want, and mention the code blowers, and then you will get a free delivery. And it can't be better than that. Now, serious stuff. The second test match on Thursday at the Gabba. A match Australia will be going into full of confidence. They're going to build a 2-0 lead in the Ashes series. And if they do that, they've pretty well made sure of keeping the Ashes, haven't they? And England, well, they've got to win it if they're going to get back into the series. It's going to be agonising. And they must start very much as second favourites. But before we look at the match in detail, let's go back and do a little bit of tidying up from Perth. In Perth, Stokes and his crew were considered to be arrogant, a little bit couldn't care less and shoulder shrugging, and got a lot of stick, certainly in Australia, where I think they've been turning people a bit against them by their attitude. Well, now, Stokes hotly denied it, as most people do when they're called arrogant, and he said, slightly strangely in a way, that he wouldn't mind if his side and himself were called rubbish, but not arrogant. Now, you can't call Stokes, Root, Brook and Co. rubbish, because they aren't rubbish, but you can call them stupid. And in Perth, they played with a remarkable lack of common sense, didn't they? I mean, look what happened. On the first day, England won the toss and batted on a fast, bouncy pitch, which they didn't really take account of. And Brook and Pope gave them quite a nice little stand at the start. And then they all went hell for leather for their Bazball strokes outside the off stump, got the edge, they were snaffled in the slips, so to speak, and England lost 5 wickets for 12 runs and were out for 172. Then at lunch on the second day, the bowlers had been magnificent and built up, and they'd got a first innings lead of 40. They were effectively 99 for 1, and they desperately needed just 260 more runs. And that really, well, I say 260, 200 more runs, I think would have been good enough, because that would have been a lead of 300, and anything over that would have been a bonus. And they would, I think, then have won the match. But what happened? They went out there and they played wild, reckless Bazball strokes. And after lunch that day, they lost 4 wickets for 11 and the match with it. Now, could the batsmen not work out for themselves what they had to do? Or had they been so indoctrinated by Bazball that they really do believe that Bazball has the answer to everything? I'm looking at my notes because my memory is not as good as it once was. But I think stupidity really came into this, and they've got really to work on this. They've got to talk about it, which I hope they have done. They've had 12 days between the Perth test and the Gabba on Thursday, and their attitude should surely have changed. And I hope we're going to see a much more purposeful-looking England batting side. It was sad that they couldn't have worked it out for themselves in Perth, but there we are, that's what happened. Now, what I would like to know in that test match is what McCullum and Stokes, the captain and manager, had to say to the England players during lunch on that second day. 99 ahead, 9 wickets in hand, 3.5 days left. There was no time pressure, and they had to play old-fashioned cricket. Was that suggested to them? Were they told this was what they had to do or not? Well, anyway, they came out, mixture of arrogance, stupidity, and a terrifying lack of common sense, and they got out and they lost the match. Of course, Stokes had done just a little bit of previous with this arrogant stuff. In the build-up to the Test series, 3 great England cricketers, all now retired, obviously, Ian Botham, Graham Gooch and Michael Vaughan, had all queried the lack of preparation. Only one 3-day game against the English Lions as a practice game before the first Test match in Australian conditions. And they would perhaps stroll on the accelerator a little harder than they might have done. And Stokes was understandably miffed. And he said, rather, I think, think unwisely, he described them as has-beens who didn't understand the modern way of the game. Well, this was insulting because you can't call Botham, Gooch and Vaughan has-beens, really. Has-been implies they weren't probably quite as good as everyone or as they thought, and also that they're so old that our views simply don't matter anymore, which is nonsense. Anyway, Stokes did apologise, and again, it just makes one wonder, does McCullum, the manager, have any control over Stokes? Or is Stokes really nothing more than McCullum's mouthpiece? These are questions, I suppose, that will be answered in time. But you see, there was a good deal of positive for England that came out of Perth. I mean, the bowlers were marvellous, weren't they? On the two last sessions on the first day, they bowled magnificently and they kept Australia to 132 and an invaluable lead of 40 runs in a low-scoring match. And England must take that with them into Brisbane. Of course, in Brisbane, they're going to be without Mark Wood, whose 35-year-old left knee is not up to it, which makes one wonder whether he ever should have come in the first place. But otherwise, and I think actually Wood's place will be taken by Josh Tongue, who was one of three players who didn't play in Perth, who went down to Canberra to play in that game there. And so he's had a bit of experience with the pink ball. But he's coming back to Brisbane now, coming back from Canberra, which can be chilly, into the subtropical temperatures of Brisbane, and only 2 full days really to put that right. Now, Australia did wonderfully well, didn't they? Go and look at that Travis Head innings in Perth. And Travis Head is going to open the batting again, which he should do. It's quite right. And goodness me, he'll be a great worry to the England bowlers who will be doing all they can to work out how they can get to him. Usman Khawaja is out of the match with his back and probably out of Test cricket, I would think. He's 39 now. And really, he's a diminishing asset. It's always sad when old players go, but I think probably his time has come. Cummins and Hazelwood are out again. But from the way in which Mitchell Starc came to the party, their absence was hardly noticed in Perth. Starc took 10 wickets and really almost won the match on his own, well, apart from Head's innings, of course. And he established an enormous hold over England's batsmen. I mean, now look at Crawley, out in the first over each time. And then we had Root and Stokes both out to Starc for single figures. So he's going to be rather large on their shoulder. And, of course, Starc is an absolute gem when it comes to day-night pink ball cricket. Initially, Starc was rather against the idea of day-night cricket, but he's played in all 13 matches that Australia have played so far under lights, and he has taken no fewer than 81 wickets. So he's going to be a real danger. And I wouldn't surprise me in the least if he doesn't give Australia a victory again in this Test match, because I think he's a force that England find extremely difficult to cope with. Root must now really show what he's made of. He's hit 39 Test hundreds, but never won in Australia. And the lack of this one in Australia is playing on his mind. He was very nervous in Perth, and it's becoming an increasingly heavy piece of baggage for him to carry. And wouldn't it be wonderful if he could go out there and, well, for England anyway, it'd be wonderful, and score that 100 in Perth. Well, England have only won 4 tests at the Gabba, and the last victory there was in 1986, when an old rough has-been scored a magnificent, really magnificent 138, and I know that because I was there. And his name, Ian Botham. Don't tell Stokes, will you? So there we are. I think the odds are all in favour of Australia, but England have that chance. And Jofra Archer and the others, if they can really get into it as they did in Perth, well, who knows? Anyway, there we are. Look at my smoking cap. It's marvellous, isn't it? And don't forget to get in touch with Peter Christian. Mention the code word blowers and you get free delivery. It's a no-brainer.